Yeah.
Okay.
National, yeah.
Okay, councillors, would someone like to move to open, please? Moved by councillor Thomas, seconded by councillor Longmire. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Just accept that.
Okay, item number 9, Director of Development and Environmental Services. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, before you are standard reports for 9.1, complying and construction certificates approved for the month of May. Again, we had another big month. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Moved by councillor Law, seconded by councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Item 9.2 is the development applications approved under delegation by the staff. Again, a decent month, and again, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So moved by councillor Longley, seconded by councillor Thomas. Any questions or comments, councillors? And I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Item 9.3 is the regional and state significant development applications currently lodged with council. There's been no change since the last reporting period.
Thank you. Moved by councillor Whitechurch, seconded by councillor Wales. Any questions or comments, councillors? I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye. Against?
Carried.
Item 9.4 is a modification of consent to development application 2018-197, alteration and additions to a commercial building. This is for the cool-off development over in Howlong. As per the report, there are a number of issues that we now know are emanating from this facility that are impacting on infrastructure in Howlong. Hence the recommendation before you, councillors, to give delegated authority to the General Manager to negotiate a planning agreement before this application is determined.
Thank you. Moved by councillor Kennedy, seconded by councillor Longley.
RCP.
Any questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour?
No.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Susan.
Pardon?
Right.
No.
No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move on to item number 10, Director of Engineering Services report. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 10.1 is the report on the progress of the works program for May 21. Therefore, notation or questions?
Thank you. There's a recommendation there moved by councillor Longmire, seconded by councillor Kennedy. Question, councillor Longmire.
Yeah, just in regard to work that was done on the school bus route between the Bulldale Road and the Hopeville Road, Labour's Lane. I drove up this morning. It really is a good job done again. Like, it was well done for that school bus route.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Tom.
We're talking roads. I just wonder if I could just slip in a recommendation here. I just thought we haven't gotten our business papers Minister Tools visit. I was just wondering if there's opportunity if we could actually write to people and say thank you for coming to Federation Council.
Get a bridge.
I've just saw a media release that I forwarded around talking about the new consultation period that they've put out.
We've been today.
Yeah, as committed by the government. So I was going to put that to July Council and do some resolutions on that. If that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Yep. We've also got to write to him about a couple of other issues we raised. One was about the railway, disused railway lines.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to Councillor Longmire in the break, and the other one is the bottleneck, so-called bottleneck for road trains on the Riverina Highway, which we raised in the meeting as well, where the lights, where it crosses the Riverina Highway, are set for B doubles only, and therefore theoretically a road train can't go across that railway crossing. So, and again, that's an issue we've had with, that's an ARDC, not an AR, what do you call it? Australian Rail Development, whatever they are. ARDC. So we've got to write to him on those. And I don't know whether all the councils are aware, but John Holland has lost the contract to maintain these supposedly operational lines that are unused. So we'll have a new operator on them come 1st of January, which the Minister announced when he was here the other day, so which is good news.
Excellent. Councillor Longmire.
If I may, Mr Mayor, ask Mr Carmichael, in regard to that changeover, what would be the incentive for the new group to want to take that on? Because what would be there, other than You're talking a maintenance process? Is that what it is?
They actually, if you want to do like Rivoli down here, for instance, all their rail crossings that go across the railway line, they pay a licence on that every year.
Never
They get paid to maintain those lines. It's a fairly lucrative contract, my understanding. I don't know the complete details, so I'm only just what I've heard in that regard. But yeah, I think it's fairly lucrative for them.
It seems interesting because between Cora and the edge of the Shire going out towards Colcan on the old line there, you know, you've got gum trees and pine trees that big growing up in it. Like, what would be the incentive? That's the one that I'm not sure of, why they'd want to.
All our land, most of our land that we got, the skate track and all that, we lease that off John Holland.
Okay.
So they get paid. And I know Rivoli, talking to them, they wanted 3 permits to go across the line down there to expand their business where the mill is down here. And they've settled for 1 because of just red tape.
Yeah.
But they're quite lucrative and they're yearly leases, so they've got to be renewed every year. So there's obviously a financial, and they do run some lines that run. They don't, I mean, some of their lines are still active and operational.
And I believe someone's already been awarded that new contract.
They have, yeah. Just he did mention in the meeting there was a company with 3 initials, which I hadn't heard of, so I don't know the company at all.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Not, I'll put it all in favour.
Right.
Against, carried.
10.2 is the report on the Capital Works program.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Law.
Question.
Question, Councillor Longmore.
In regard to the drought funding round 2 Balldale water supply, what's any movement on the station, Mr. Carmichael?
From discussions with Ben, our manager in that particular field, he tells me he's got all that under control. So to spend that money prior to the end of the financial year.
There was some thoughts that a process that would be underway before the end of June. That's not going to happen, is it?
No, it was to buy all the materials to get them in place.
Yeah.
We were hoping there was a possibility that we may have been able to get some money from the one up at Durana.
Oh, yeah.
They've now suggested that that's not transferable, so they want us still to do the one at Durana. So I think on that one we've got an extension till the end of the year.
So what's the answer for the people at the Balldale community that asked me about where's the Balldale water supply at?
We've only got what's 200,000 out of a $2 million project, so we've got 10% of the funding.
So there's nothing on the horizon at this point in time for.
Unless we can pick up some funding or do something to at least get us to hook from that bore back up to where the existing bore is, the new bore.
Yeah, I understand the mechanics of it, but
Yeah.
I was of the understanding there was some purpose of chance to make it work.
Well, there may have been if we'd got the money from up north, but we're not allowed to. They won't transfer that money, so I'm stuck with a 200,000 budget that's detailed here, which we haven't got enough money to do it.
We did go into Albury the other day. We had a representative from DPI, the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment, who was the water specialist. She was doing the rounds with the local Albury officer, so Steve, Joe and myself went along to that with Albury and Greater Hume, and she'd been and done a meeting with Riverina and Wagga and doing the whole rounds. But the thing that came up was this IWCM, the Integrated Water Cycle Management, that every council's got to have, supposedly, to get safe and secure water funding. And she admitted at the meeting that that's what they say, that you need to have that in place, but they will fund other projects because they know themselves that which Steve's talked about before, they're not approving them. If you're not using public works, you can't get, for some reason, your document over the line. Albury's been waiting 2 years, haven't they, as well? Spent thousands of money on this document that they want. It goes to all the great lengths of risk and how you're going to manage, and they can't even fund capital infrastructure. So Ben was at it as well, and we took it up with her at the end about the issue about some of our bigger facilities like Marwala Water and a couple of the others have been ranked low, where the contribution then that they would make is not as high as they should. Because I thought straight away about the Balldale Water when she said you can still put applications forward, because Justin Clancy used to say put forward safe and secure water as an option for Balldale, and we were told by the government at the time that you can't get any funding unless you got your IWCM, but I thought that was, I think she let that out. Yeah.
It was a bit encouraging.
Is there any actions that we can initiate to do
Well, we
something
can
to
certainly
get
look
this
at-
funding?
We can look at those avenues of funding now. That statement's been made. I don't know how far up the line she sits, but she obviously came from a reasonable level to be talking to.
Sydney she is.
Yeah, so she.
Yeah.
But what she said there is what the general manager said is true. We're using Hunter water, not Hunter water, Hunter. What do they call themselves?
H2O, is it?
H2O to do ours, and they could just come back with a list this long. Like if department say if you'd used us, we would have been able to approve it for you. And to me, that's just nonsense coming from another government department.
Do you sense in a new financial year or new council something needs to be initiated? Is that where we go?
Yeah, I think just on the gap, because the original, I know the $2 million was to get the whole box and dice done, but I thought the attempt was to get the part way solution was to get better water from that other bore in.
Yeah.
So we might get Ben to provide a report on what the funding gap is just to get a better unpotable supply. And I don't know whether it's 10, 20, 100 grand, whatever he was chasing off the Rana one.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we get a report on where the gap is.
Yeah, no, we could do that.
That'd be good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then update the community, like with our newsletter on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be better too.
Okay, Councillor Thomas.
Oh, I was just going to quickly. I know we are digressing off Director Carmichael's report. Just in light of our staff attending the meeting in Albury last week, it was with the Town Water Risk Reduction Program. That's what the brief was. Is that correct? So will there be a report coming to Council on that, on the outcome of that meeting or some of the thoughts?
We probably could. She didn't provide any
Oh, really?
material. It wasn't even a PowerPoint presentation. She just came in and started talking, and I thought it was,
Bit underwhelming.
yeah.
Just that the more that you read into it, as you would see in my report from the MDA conference, as you would be very well aware, with the New South Wales water strategies, and obviously we're going to sit underneath the Murray Regional New South Wales Water Strategy, is that this reduction program actually feeds into that water strategy. That's why I'm thinking that's why we really need to have a clear understanding about what's going on. So I have got it on the agenda for our Region 2 tomorrow because it was brought to our table from Edward River. So, yeah, we really need to be across all this.
If we can get it, we could probably get it, but like I said, she didn't supply any notes, PowerPoint presentation or anything. Just came in, and well, when they did get there, they'd been tied up with Riverina Water for a while, up north. But when she finally got there, she just came in and talked for half an hour, and
Right.
that was it. So it was a bit hard to sort of,
And then mentioned a follow-up meeting up in Griffith in a month or two,
yeah. So
Just
whether that's...
one of the main highlights, and I'm sure it will happen when we go to the local government water conference in Narrabri, is these water strategies that they're going to be imposing on us. And when our draft comes out in July, to have that input, because that's where it's going to be. That's where the footprint's going to, That was just one thing that was like a Red Bull.
I think a lot of this is coming out of the Auditor General's report, whatever it was 12 months ago, when he sort of criticised the department fairly well. So they're just getting around, and she was a very good PR person, I would have said.
Yeah, right. Good luck, Tom.
Okay, nothing further, questions or comments? I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried.
Item 10.3 is fixing local roads program. Again, this was announced by the Minister Toole when he was here that this was going to happen, and it has happened. And the reason it's come to this meeting is because before we have another meeting, we've got to have a submission in. So, and there is a reasonable amount of work in getting these submissions together. So I've gone through and just detailed what has happened in round 1 and round 2. They have changed the guidelines slightly, whereas before you could go up to $5 million for a project. It's now down to $3 million. And whilst there's never been any great emphasis on a council contribution, well, it was always recommended a council contribution. In their words, they've said that it would be strongly recommended. I think somewhere that we look at a 25% contribution, which is pretty much outside our funding means at the moment. you know, if you look at a $3 million project and you've got to find 25% of it, it puts a fair hole in any of our other. So we're going to resubmit, providing council's happy with these, with a 10% contribution. We just redid, there's 4 roads that we were unsuccessful with in round 2. Balldale, Narrow Plains Road, Whitehead Street and Greenvale Road. We're just rejigging the figures on them to have a look. I believe Whitehead Street's probably been underestimated quite substantially. I'm not quite sure what happened there when we did it last time, whether we're only looking at doing half it, or certainly there's about 8 k's of that road wants doing. So, yeah. And in the new form that we've got to fill in, there are certain questions you've got to answer in there, and the answers to those questions will form a priority basis for the assessment panel. So whilst I believe council could probably do a priority rating on the roads if they wished, my understanding from reading the guidelines is that the main emphasis on a priority rating between council's individual applications will be the answers to the questions in the form that we have to submit.
Okay, can we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Longmire.
If I may, in regard to, happy to go along with the motion, obviously that's why I've moved it. In regard to the discounting of the opportunity to inspect both the Cullerball and Balldale roads, which I initiated and was adopted at the last council meeting. I've actually done a bit of research in regard to the difference between, as I claimed at the time, not only in physical evidence between those 2 roads, but also the opportunity to find out through information that I researched about perhaps an indicator towards the selection by where it was certified to come back in funding. These are the things that I've researched and can defend. Under Federation Council classification of roadwork, Cullerball Road is a primary access road, whereas Balldale Road is a collector road, which is higher classification. Now, that can be challenged, or has been challenged of me, because Federation Council, it was perceived that didn't have a classification of their road network. Well, further research has given me the opportunity to find some evidence, I believe physical evidence, and if I may, Mr Mayor, table it for the opportunity for both the engineer and the general manager to good self to have a look at in regard to the statement I've just made in regard to classification of those 2 roads. So if I may commence by doing that. It's what I can find, whether it's true or not. You may be able to, there's a reference number there in regard to the opportunity back in 2017. The second part of it is under the measurement of traffic volume between the old Balldale Road and the Cullerball Road at peak time per annum. We're talking Cullerball 8,592 transmissions of vehicles, to Balldale 13,279. So that's a 33% high rating in number of traffic volumes. The other point 3 is ambiguously the road restrictions for safe travel speed limit on Cullerball Road. So we're looking at restriction of speed, maximum 100 k an hour on such a road. 365 days a year, whereas in the same document, to Balldale are 2 days per year. There's a big ambiguity there. There's no speed restriction signs were observed by myself on 2 journeys of Cullerball Road recently. And the other one is no clarity on why Cullerball is shovel ready, and Balldale I didn't find where it was shovel ready. So they're the things that have pacified me into my position in regard to these 2 roads, but certainly with the opportunity going forward. I believe that, and having attended the roads conference in Sydney the other day, and having an opportunity to speak personally with Minister Toole at morning tea time, he was certainly have the ability to listen to my position, not condemning, reframing or changing anything, but certainly the purpose of what I'm mentioning. And so he was sympathetic, I believe, to the opportunity where, so I think, have you mentioned, Mr Carmichael, up to 1 project of $3 million is eligible in priority. Yep. So that's the sort of thing that may hopefully come forward in the opportunity to reinstate certainly the Bordeaux Road. So that's my piece of information.
Just a query, Steve, on the amounts now in that list there. Understand obviously Whitehead Street to be reviewed. Is that, say, a total amount though that you've listed, including our 10% contribution? Is that what those roads will get, including our money, or is that what we're asking for off state? The 2.1, for example.
I just have to double check that, to be quite honest.
I think they're the same amounts as previous, so they're probably including our money towards it.
Yeah, they usually put it in and then just, I would have thought that's the way. It may not include our 10%, but it was the money that I got out of the report that we did previously, so.
Yeah.
Just a question on that comment. The road counts, they're readily available, obviously. Did you?
They were yearly ones.
They were yearly ones.
Per annum.
Yeah, because I thought, to that point, going forward, is this something that you'd like to see the traffic counts done when council's selection of roads, or how would you?
I think the opportunities coming forward, initiating on Thursday with the Roads Committee that Councillor Thomas and I and Mr Carmichael, and we're kick-starting something. We've had some workshops, and I think the tone of going forward, certainly in challenge and change, could unfold commencing on Thursday with this, I hope, in this committee meeting, because there's a lot of work to be done. And I think it's a tool that we can use to assemble, like out at Oakland's the other night when it was challenged about you don't see the graders and all the rest of it. Well, we're aware of that, and as people representing council on that committee, working with the managers and all those people, where there's an understanding. One thing I did notice the other day when I went up to Marunda the other evening, at the top end of Fed Way, and it's always been said that the former Urana Shire Council were the best road builders around here, and that's always been a perception out there. But certainly on the top end of Federation Way, what intrigued me was it's a beautiful big road, it's the main road on that, but the table drains were delivered with cleanliness and pushed right. And so what you had was also not only the road surface and the shoulders, but also the drainage on the table drains. And yet down here there's some climate that they talk about with Sloane's Frogger, where we only manage the road surface and the shoulders. Once it gets to the table drains, we're in a section of environmental control. Mr Carmichael, you might be able to speak on that one.
What you said.
That's my understanding.
What you said's very true.
Sorry?
They've cleared everything in the old Urana Shire, the fence line to fence line approach. That's fine, but we can't do that anymore. Have a look at your Riverina Highway, and people have driven from here to Howling. The barriers were that far off the edge of the bitumen.
They are.
That's as far as you're allowed to work.
Yeah, but that's recent work and up the top end of Fed Way, if I may.
That is, and the beauty up there is that there's an old road beside the new road, and it's crisscrossed over the years, and you've got a road reserve that's probably, I don't know, is it 100 metres wide or probably more? In the old days we talked about out of Burke, there were 40 chain roads, whereas roads around here are 1 or 2 chain wide.
But I'm
Talking in the old, you'd understand the chain.
Yeah. What I'm talking about is currently in our shire, between the different sections that I'm talking about. How come?
I understand that, but we can't, what they've done up there, I can't do down here. If I did that on the Riverina Highway or I did it on the road down to Mulwala, we could drag, the EPA would come in.
Is that
It's already been done. It's already been cleared.
Yeah,
So
okay.
You've got a so-called mandate to go out there because it's already been disturbed. But if it hasn't been disturbed, you haven't got a hope of moving in it these days.
And yet I think at the conference the other day, and I'll speak about it in my delegates report, there's an overrider on going forward, and it's called safety audit by somebody within our council that has an input very heavily towards road safety, with line marking edges and those bump strips on the side of the road.
Batters.
But yeah, all that stuff is now coming into position, which we can obviously talk through at the committee and keep going forward. But they're things that the general public and certainly, out in the rural areas, people want to understand.
I mean, the Sloane's Frogger, there's not much we can do about him. He's here. We're in part of his environment, so we've just got to wear him. him or her.
Assist him and work with him.
Where, or do whatever you can to help him or her.
Sorry, the second part of that question that I didn't quite get out was, did the minister indicate, obviously this type of grant, as it was last time, was selected by the state?
By a panel, yeah.
By a panel.
Yeah. And the same will happen again
And
this
the
time.
same will happen
Same
again.
will happen again.
Yes.
Yeah, so really so as a council, you'd still just put your 4 roads forward and the selection would be exactly the same as happened the last time where we don't have any input.
And I think, and no doubt, it's matrix based, merit based on the condition of opportunity. But what I'm describing about is the information that's given on the application. That's the ones that I read out, that I found out were the discrepancy, and I bring it to council's attention to understand it.
Yeah. Councillor Thomas, you had a question?
I'm just wondering if we could just add a 4th point potentially to our recommendation. I just noticed here that you have with the formation of a roads advisory committee potentially. Can we actually put that formally, that we are able to do that? I'm really happy for it to happen in the next term with the new elected members who will be in chamber. But if we can just make it formal that we really would like to endorse having a roads committee from the community.
Yep. So
Thought that had already been a resolution.
That's what I'm
of
asking.
council.
Has it or hasn't it? I wasn't really sure. With the word potentially, I'm thinking has
The
it
reason we formed it.
already been mentioned that we're happy to support that? But have we formally
Three
done that?
councillors on the committee, that's Councillor Longmire, yourself and the mayor.
But the opportunity to send out an expression of interest to our community members to be on that.
I think that was in, is there a charter for that somewhere too, I think?
I'm not sure if there is or not.
I'm nearly sure there's a motion on, council's already got a motion on its books.
For
Form the
engagement
committee.
with community members just
Because
on
that
that.
did that prior to
Yeah.
starting that round of consultation, which we've been through, and this will be the next
Okay.
phase of it going forward.
So the roads committee workshop that's on Thursday,
Yeah.
which is just still
It's
internal.
still
Have to
internal.
make more to our own internal workshop, whereas the other one had external.
I think if we clarify that point though, and then get the terms of reference and work forward on the
Because I'm
community.
thinking when the bus trip is to go ahead, it would
Yep.
be really great if you could have that community component on the bus trips, and then you can draw on their local knowledge when
Yep.
you're doing the bus trip.
So would you be happy with that, just to get the clarity, utilise that for
At the workshop,
at the workshop? Yeah. Okay. Any further questions or comments, councillors?
So just clear then that point 3 means we won't do the separate bus tour, and also point 2 we won't pass any further resolution. We'll just put all 4 in as is.
Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
That's it from me.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve. Now we'll move on to item number 11.
Yeah.
Notice of motion, questions without notice.
11.1.
Yeah.
11.1 is moved by Councillor Thomas. That council
Go Brunny, go
seek
Brunny.
clarity from Murray-Darling Basin Authority and Goulburn Murray Water in regards to timing of the possible Yarrawonga Weir Bridge closure. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I can talk to that.
No. Can I move it, Councillor Thomas? Can I get a seconder? Councillor Kennedy? Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
As you'd be all well aware, back in January, we sought some further clarification. We also did that 12 months prior to that because of this magic date called 2020 that this Weir Bridge is going to close in 2020. Here we are in 2021 and they've told us the 30th of June. But guess what's going on in Moala? We have bridge works happening on our main bridge. This bridge is about to celebrate 100 years it was opened in 1924, 100-year birthday. It's like giving it a birthday present before it turns 100 in 2024. But anyway, park that idea. So as you would be aware, our lovely community down there has been receiving lots of pamphlets in the mail, at the post office, etc., etc. So we have a community who are feeling a little bit anxious because the bridge has been closed and we've all been using the Weir Bridge. The Weir Bridge at night time, the traffic lights are in place. If the main bridge is closed during the day, we have some lovely people standing with stop-go signs. Okay, a few things going on. Are we having a bridge that's closed on 30th of June? We've got pamphlets telling us that we're still to use the Weir Bridge in July. So we really need some clarification on what's going on. I mean, one of the earlier pamphlets was telling us that the Weir Bridge was going to close and we would have residents who have to either use Cobram or Corowa to cross the bridge, cross the river. Well, that's going to be very difficult if you've got a restricted licence of only 50 k's, which we do have residents who do that. How are they going to cope? You know, let's think about logistical services for our agricultural sector. Do they want that extra freight burden? This cannot happen. Let's advocate on behalf of our community and our residents, get a clear clarification of what's happening with that Yarrawonga Weir Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, 11.2 has been dealt with, so we'll now move to item number 12, reports from committees. First of all, we have 12.1, local traffic committee minutes of their meeting. And there's a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that minutes of that meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Whitechurch.
Happy to be made.
Any questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Whitechurch?
I'd love to, Mr. Mayor, if I could. It's great to see things moving with the traffic committee. Quite slowly, but I'm bewildered as where we're at with the Gallipoli Street, Door Street intersection. We're coming up to an anniversary again in September. Surely it'll be fixed this year. And Door Street and Hermitage Drive down onto Nixon Street, I mean, that's going to be another one that'll take 2 or 3 years before anything's resolved there, but I must admit the track cutting through the corner now is quite well worn, so we won't have to fix the other side of the road. It's hardly used through that intersection.
Thank you, Councillor Whitechurch. Councillor Longley?
Make a comment on the disability parking bay in Hawkins Street. How long? It's finally been completed. Thank you very much to Lee Ashford, his team. It is the most compliant disability parking bay in Federation Council area.
Thank you, Councillor Longley.
Take issue with that statement. There's 3 out here in the thing which it's based on. I stand corrected, Mr. Councillor.
Councillor, did you open? Oh, sorry, I thought it was speed limit or something. Okay. All right, well, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 13, reports from delegates. We have the first one there, delegates report from Murray-Darling Basin Association, AGM. Thank you very much for that report. Councillor Thomas, did you want to speak to that at all? Are you pretty happy as read? Or?
I suppose I can ask, does anyone have any questions after reading the report? Maybe? I was really humbled to be able to attend. It was absolutely brilliant. 4 days. I really think the highlight was the study tour. Rochelle, were we able to watch the 6-minute YouTube? Is that possible?
Probably be better in workshop, that's all.
We can do that, couldn't we?
I just can't reiterate enough for people to watch it. It really needs to be watched. And I'm actually going to recommend that all my fellow councillors in Region 2 actually take it to their chambers as well. And I can't reiterate enough to my general public to get it out there to watch it as well. It's just amazing. It's the most humbling experience to be able to watch that. I'd just like to pass on the annual report that was presented to us. So obviously Region 2 highlights in there, which is fantastic. Just for due process, I really need to just discuss with you the extra motion that came from Region 2 and how that came about, and I really need it to be endorsed today. Obviously, with due process, we've got to actually follow quite what I believe is strict guidelines. Obviously, with a recommendation going to a national conference, it's got to be delivered from your own council and then taken to your region and then adopted for an AGM. Only 7 days out from the AGM, this region was able to take on board, and we're quite happy to, an extra motion that came out of Shepparton. So I really need, if everyone's comfortable, are we able to adopt that today along with those other recommendations?
Have you got that wording, the recommendations
Yeah,
there?
they're over in 13.2. Yeah, so if there's any other verbal reports, we can list those and then have all those ones coming from the MDA conference.
If everyone's happy to endorse those, that would be brilliant. Aside from that, it's all about making connections when you go to such conferences, and I'm really fortunate that tomorrow Berrigan are going to be hosting Region 2 general meeting, and we've actually got in the room with us the Commonwealth Environmental Water Officer coming, and that was all from a connection from the conference in Wentworth, so that's really exciting to have them in the room with us tomorrow. I'm happy to move those recommendations.
Thank you. And we'll, if it's okay with you, we'll go through the verbal reports.
Yeah.
And adopt them together, and there may be some additions.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. And after lunch, definitely do the YouTube video. Look forward to that.
Yep, that'd be great.
Excellent. Any further reports, councillors? We'll join 13.2 with the Councillor Law.
Thank you. I attended the Federation Art Prize AGM as the council delegate, and I'm pleased to say that we did get a committee and that the art show and the photo prize are both going to be on the same time, opening on the 15th of October and closing on the 2nd of November, which will cover the Melbourne Cup weekend. I would have liked to have gone on the shearings of the Ram bus tour, but I had an Ageing Well advisory meeting that day, and unfortunately if I'm not there they don't have a quorum, so I chose to do the Ageing Well thing. I've done a letter of support for the Mickey City Advisory Committee to the Australian Japan Foundation for financing a documentary film celebrating the 23 years of our sister city relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Any further councillor reports? Councillor Kennedy looks like he's getting.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of attending the ski club the other last week with Councillor Thomas and the Mayor and Adrian was there, and met with Minister Toole and Justin Clancy. It was good to finally get, like they're putting out as of today, it gets released saying that the submissions are going out for a 6 weeks period, and after 6 weeks' time we should know which route we're getting the bridge is going to be chosen. And that's what Mr. Toole said to us. He said, once I make the decision, that's where it's going. So at least we're going to get some clarification on where it's going to go, and hopefully if we ever get a bridge. I said to Minister Toole, I'd love to see a bridge in my lifetime, but I said I'm not holding my breath. But it'd be good to see that it was well worth turning up and having a yarn with him, and thanks to Justin. Like Justin has worked tirelessly for us to get Minister Toole down here, and you can't support Justin that enough. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Longmire.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Sydney last Monday for the local roads congress, which was initiated by the IPWEA, Institute of Public Works Engineering of Australia. It's quite interesting where the theme of the Congress was reconnecting the dots in community recovery, and that was balanced against the droughts, the floods and the bushfires. So it was a good theme, really. The connections being emergency management of assets, road safety and resources, the strategic areas which are interrelated and of primary importance to local government. There was a variety of speakers, quite a number of them, probably about a dozen of them. The ones that I only will comment on here, but furthermore I'll have a report for the roads conference on Thursday in more detail, I hope, if I can get my head around it. But certainly the keynote was from Minister Paul Toole, MP Minister for Regional Transport, and he spoke about the different things that applied in the opportunity for more further grant funding, and certainly in up to $3 million on one project, which just on the mention of the bridge, he didn't go into any detail, but one of the specifics of his presentation was in regard to the funding coordinated for bridges welfare at both state and federal level. So it could be an opportunity politically, and good luck to him if he can come out and announce something in cooperation with the feds to say that there's a route to be chosen and get on with it. And I just sense he's pretty keen about those sort of things to do well in his portfolio. So I was impressed by that. The different other speakers, one was also, I'll touch on, was road classification review. Wendy Mason, the chair of the Regional Road Transfer and New South Wales Classification Review. It's been here before when we had an opportunity and we declined, but one of the things that she stressed upon was any reclassification between local roads and regional roads would not be adverse to the management of the local government area, meaning that the only thing that would change would be the funding. Now that's really got to be something that in purpose is valuable to local government areas, because we want to be able to do the work, but the government able to provide funds in that interrelationship. And I think that was really important for her to come out. The other one is in regard to the personal opportunity to speak with Minister Toole in regard to the example I see. I mentioned it at morning tea time to the General Manager, was 90% of our farming area is probably undercropped. That'll be fair comment in all of us to drive around and see. And in that regard, if we talk about the medium many years ago, or not that many years ago, in regard to an operation of a farm, meaning that off that one farm, anywhere within the higher than lower sections of it, but in the medium, you'd say off that farm there would be probably 1 load of wool, semi-load of wool, 3 loads of sheep, and 25 loads of grain off that area. Because of what I've defined as being all under cropping area at the moment, that medium farm, as an example, has now probably got no sheep, no wool, and 100 B-double loads of grain coming off it. There's a difference between what I talk about in the opportunity where the theme was before the last 10 miles, kilometres of road maintenance, it's the first 10 mile now. And he didn't think it was such a bad idea. And so in our going forward with our long-term financial plan, speaking with farmers, I think that we can make something happen there as long as they have benefited by that first 10 kilometres from the farm gate to a connecting road where they get on and the way they can. And remember, a lot of the changes also, we used to deliver our grain during the summertime. Now all the grain nearly is on farm storage, and then it's all delivered during the winter. And so there's another thing that has changed. It's nobody's fault, it's the way it is. Yep. So these sort of things, if we can bring that into position with our thesis going forward with our roads committee, I reckon we can do some good. That's about all I have to report on.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Any other councillors have their report? I'd just like to add, we were very honoured to have an invitation to How Long, the opening of the pavilion and gym. We had a fantastic night there. There was a really nice crowd, and we were supported by Justin Clancy. The week prior to that was the opening of the tennis courts pavilion, and equally it was good. A lot of tennis players out there, and a lesson to be learnt. Like, just remember how old you are before you go and stick your foot out in the tennis court with a pair of socks on.
Julius Marlowe.
But look, there's been lots of.
It's interesting the way you bounce, Pat.
Yes, I do. But there's but thanks, Councillor Longley, for that. We had a really enjoyable night. It was it's an asset that's going to be well utilised in that community. You can see that already.
I think the point the President, Jason Pond, made was pretty well made. He said this building and that part of the building is bringing the community into the football club and vice versa. So it's no longer seen as just a footy building, it's whole community use. So it was well made.
Which was awesome. Okay, if there's no further reports.
Seconder for Councillor Thomas.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it. I thought Councillor Kennedy. I'll put it. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to correspondence requiring council action for information. 14.1, the various appreciation letters from Tim Fisher Sculpture Unveiling. 14.2, the Government of New South Wales. the Honourable Margaret Beasley in relation to the unveiling as well. We've got 14.3 New South Wales Public Libraries Association, 14.4 Office of Local Government, and the How Long Community Progress Association Inc. They're all the, and 14.6 Mulwala Football and Netball Club, 14.7 Murray-Darling Association Region 1 meeting, and then 14.8 Ramsay Board meeting, 14.9 Country Mayors Association General meeting, and then 14.2 Country Mayors Association meeting re-election on 9th of June. If anyone would like to discuss any of those items, and I'll move them in a bracket, if that's okay. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Longley. Any questions or comments to any of those items of correspondence? If not,
One from my wife,
the one from Mulwala, would you like to speak to that one, Steve?
No, I didn't. I just thought they were asking for a.
Mulwala Football Club, Netball Club. Advising a sponsorship opportunity for a new scoreboard.
I can comment on that if you like.
Yeah.
The request came in, part of the master plan down there does show a new scoreboard, and I think they've thought it out, Steve, through Darren, the best location for that. They've
Yeah, finally, I think.
had a bit of discussion about all those matters, but I forwarded that to Jared Van Emmerich as far as whether there was a community grant or some way of council, we wouldn't have an ability just to sponsor it as such, as footy grounds and scoreboards all over the Shire area. So that was just to Jared. I don't see that we've got any immediate avenue to fund that, but it's just for noting.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've given them, oh, sorry.
Councillor Thomas?
You've given them that feedback.
I forwarded it to Jared, so I imagine
Yeah, he'll
Jared's
contact with them.
talked to them, yeah.
Yeah.
I did reply straight away to David or Chris,
Yeah.
the president, so that we were, maybe in years to come they can do a north of the Murray, might be able to put some money towards
That's
it. Yeah.
Jack.
I just noticed they're going to put a lot of other information on it as well
Ah.
when they've got their big events on down there. So.
That's good. Okay. If there's no further questions, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against carried. Item number 15, recommendation that council move to closed session. Would someone like to move that, please? Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Whitechurch. All in favour?
Aye.
Against carried.